Good morning, boys and girls. Today is Fun Friday. I hope everybody had a great week. You're doing a spectacular job on your work, and I'm really proud of you, and I'm so thankful for our families. So today, I'm going to read chapter 4 of The Gigantic Giant's Goof-up by Sarah Courtauld, in which there is a jar. As she skipped along past the back of Beyond, through the side of Beyond, and then into the haunted forest, Lavender was grinning from ear to ear. Of course! She had thought that the world had completely run out of princes. She had thought that her life was over and she was going to be stuck living on a boring farm forever. But she couldn't have been more wrong. Lavender wasn't going to marry a normal, boring human prince who wanted one of those anyway. Real princes were all right, she thought, but magical princes? They were much better. Lavender was going to fall in love with a magical prince who lived in a magical kingdom. All she needed to do was find someone who had magical powers. And that was easy. She knew exactly where to go. Beyond the haunted forest, beside the marsh of unusual smells, she would find what she was looking for. So she skipped along, singing as she skipped. And as she sang, all the ghostly nettles, phantom acorns, and eerie daffodils in the haunted forest fled from the sound of her voice. Okay, here it goes. I'm going to be tiny, so small and so sweet. So tiny, so small, so sweet and petite. Smaller than a pigeon, puffin, or parakeet. Smaller than a mushroom or a single gram of wheat. Smaller than a slice of ham or any other meat. And in a fairy kingdom, then my fairy prince I'll meet. And in a tiny palace on a tiny fairy street, we'll foxtrot around our ballroom on our very own tiny feet. And tiny five-course banquets with tiny forks we'll eat. For I'm going to be a tiny prince to me eat. Soon enough, she had run through the forest and she had come to the edge of the marsh of unusual smells. Right beside the marsh, there was a small cottage with a purple plume of smoke rising from the chimney and a sign on the door that read, Boris the Witch. Enter, if you dare, slash off through the door. But before I go on, I just wanted you to see her map and how all the ghosts fled from her while she was singing, as you clearly probably did while I was reading. But wait, stop. Arrête, as they say in France. Lopeta, as they say in Finland. Nimini foodle drop, as they say in my kitchen just a second ago. You may be thinking, does this book have a giant in the title? Were they all so tall that they just didn't fit in this book? Did they all get such sore necks from trying to fit into such a small book that they left and went to live in the very tall book of very tall buildings instead? Did the illustrator of this book just decide to replace all of the giants in this book with question marks? Because they are much, much easier to draw? Well, no. The giants will turn up soon enough, and when they do, you'll probably wish they hadn't. Anyway, the door to the cottage was ajar. Odd. Lavender stepped over it and went inside. Standing in the gloomy room before her were three women. One was old and wrinkled and as skinny as a twig. One had fiery red hair that came bursting out of her head like a child's scribble. And one was just a little girl. They were all wearing spiky witches' hats, long witches' robes, and bright witches' grins. "Does Boris the witch live here?" asked Lavender. "I am she," replied the woman with the fiery hair. "These are my weird sisters, Doris and Horace." Horace was the wrinkly old one, and Doris was the little girl. "We're not really weird," said Doris. "And we're really not sisters," added Horace. "Hello, Boris, Doris, and Horace," said Lavender. "Boris, I think you borrowed my sister's knees one time." "Oh, yes, and lovely knees they were, too. How can I be of service to you?" Lavender paused for a moment, taking in the strange scene before her. The walls were covered with shells of strange, slimy things in jars, and shells of strange, slimy things that's a picture of the three sisters. Definitely should have been in jars. In one corner, there were a pile of broomsticks, which Lavender sort of expected. And in the other corner, there was a pile of rabbits, which she definitely didn't. "I have come from afar seeking a magical spell," said Lavender, trying her best to sound mysterious and important and like the kind of person a witch would like to help. "Of course," said Boris, "for I knew before you even stepped into this room what it was that brought you here." "You did?" "I did." "Really?" "Definitely." "But that's so magical." "But of course," said Boris, "for I have the gift of foresight. I looked deep into the future with the help of my all-seeing pie, and I saw all. But tell me anyway, in your own words." "Well, I want to become tiny," said Lavender. "What? Why?" spluttered Boris. "I mean, of course you do. Go on." "I want to become so tiny so I can go to a faraway kingdom and fall in love with a tiny magical prince." "Oh, don't we all? Don't we all?" said Boris. "But what can you give me in return for such a priceless gift? A vial of magical elixir? A crystal ball? An invisible unicorn?" Lavender thought for a moment. "What about an imaginary unicorn?" she said, imagining one on the spot. There's the rabbits, the broomsticks, and the pie. "Perhaps," said Boris. "What color is it?" "Purple," said Lavender. "Purple?" Boris sounded disappointed. "You didn't imagine a green one?" "No." "That is a great shame," said Boris. "Well, there's nothing we can do about that now. What else can you give me?" "I've got a silver coin, a red button, and I'm not really sure what this is," she said, delving into her pocket. "I think this might have been fudge." "That's it?" said Boris. "Oh, and I could sing you a song if you like. I can make one up right now." She cleared her throat. "Sisters three, they're all quite weird, with hats and warts, and is that a beard?" "Enough," thundered Boris, but Lavender was just getting into her stride. "And while they cast each magic spell, many rabbits here do dwell. Are they magical as well, or do they just look sweet and smell?" "Enough," said Boris, who was now shaking all over and had her fingers in her ears. "But I had 8 more verses," said Lavender. "Your singing is powerful indeed," said Boris. "I'm sure we can come to some kind of arrangement." "Doris," she cried, "this child has an urgent request. Fetch the holy snail." At this, Doris nodded, hopped over a few stray rabbits, scurried to the back of the room, opened a trapdoor, and disappeared into the cellar below. A few minutes later, she returned with a small wooden box in her hands and handed it to Boris. In this box is the holy snail, Boris said solemnly. It contains a deep and powerful magic. Behold! Boris opened the box, and Lavender peered inside. Sitting in the box, quietly nibbling on a piece of lettuce, was a small brown snail. This snail, Boris whispered, is beyond understanding, beyond undersitting, beyond all human comprehension. Oh, good, said Lavender. If you wish upon the snail, your wish will surely come true. But take care, for it is dangerous indeed to meddle in magic that you do not understand. The holy snail is really only suitable to be used by a trained witch or wizard. What are your magical qualifications, little girl? I have a pointy hat, said Lavender. Well then, I'm sure you'll be fine, said Boris. Would you like it gift wrapped? Oh, yes, please, Lavender replied. So Horace whisked the box away, scuttled off, and disappeared through the trap door with Doris. Boris, how can I ever thank you, said Lavender. Would you like me to sing you a thank you song? Never, said Boris. It's really no trouble at all, said Lavender, smiling brightly. Now I found the magic spell. I probably won't fall down a well. Or if I do, then I'll just yell. Horace, Doris, Boris shrieked. Come back, quickly. A moment later, Horace appeared holding a small package wrapped up in pink paper. Smiling giddily, she leaped over the rabbits and then curtsied as she put it into Lavender's hands. Be careful how you use the holy snail, for its powers are great indeed, said Boris. The magic within it is dark and highly dangerous. It can move mountains. It can ruin lives. Also, you need to feed it green leaves 3 times a day. Now, be gone, child. Be gone. On Monday, I will read chapter 5, in which there is an argument. I hope everybody has a fantastic weekend. Maybe the rain will just pass us by. Smile. I miss you. Mwah.